Good morning, good day, and good evening. I'm, as always, your host, Brody Robertson. This is actually the first episode I'm recording of 2026, so there is that. But that doesn't really matter. So today, we have the developer of a project known as GPU Screen Recorder on, which you've probably heard of before, but we'll talk about that maybe a bit later. The main thing that we are here for today is a new X11 server being developed known as Phoenix. So, how about you introduce yourself and we'll go from there?
Yeah, so I'm the developer of GPU Screen Recorder and now Phoenix. And the name I go by online is it's not pronounceable, but you can call me dec05eba.
Okay,
Uh,
I saw the name, I was like, I assume it's just one of those names where you just want to make sure it's because we don't want to show your face and all that, so it's just like a name to have, and it's not going to be taken
uh,
anywhere.
yeah. So yeah, I also made some other software, but it's mostly GPU Screen Recorder that I'm
Mhm,
known for.
mhm. So I guess we'll just get right into it then. Um, why are you making an X11 server? I know that's really broad and we can branch out a lot from there, but just at like a high level, why start the project?
Right. So in almost all of the projects that I made, I've had issues with Wayland
Mhm.
because of restrictions, and the reasons are not technical, but because of the decisions that they have made to uh, design the Wayland compositors for their own. Uh, they only they mostly only think about their own applications and the style of applications that would fit their desktop, and not the general applications that might need to do something unusual. Often the case. For example, if you make some application that looks like an application that was on Windows,
Mhm.
that won't really work that well on Wayland. So I
What do you
try
mean
to
by
make
that?
my own.
Before you go on any further.
Yeah, for example, in GPU Screen Recorder, it's designed to look like NVIDIA Shadow Play, and it's a full screen overlay. It's transparent. And for example, in the Wayland protocol, it says that a full screen transparent overlays are not allowed. The background has to be black. So I don't want a black background for the window. I want to able to see what's behind it.
Right, you want it to be like Shadowplay, you want it to appear over the game. I actually have
Yeah.
another similar idea to this which doesn't work properly on Wayland. I don't know if you've ever played Path of Exile, but for that there is a really common tool that people run called Awakened PoE Trade, which is a trading overlay which tells you the prices of items and things like that. On X11, works great. On Wayland, thankfully they have a fallback where it can run the overlay as a web browser window, so it's just in the window to the side, but the overlay part of it just doesn't function at all, like at all.
Yeah. So for example, in GPU Screen Recorder case,
Mhm,
it runs as an X11 window on Wayland,
mhm.
and it happens to work in some compositors, but it's not really specified how X11 windows should behave. So it works on KDE and GNOME,
Mhm.
but not on Cosmic, for example.
Right.
And Cosmic is not doing it wrong, just that it's undefined in the protocols, but it should do X11 Windows, so
Mhm.
it doesn't work properly. And there are also other issues with, if you want me to mention all of the issues, but there are too many. But
We have plenty of time.
yeah, so if you want to display an X11 window specifically full screen on one monitor,
Mhm.
it doesn't really work that properly on Wayland. I've seen these examples. For example, if you try to run a D menu or applications like that on
Mm, mm.
Wayland, it won't display properly. So I do a really bad ugly hack on Wayland when I try to display it on the focusing window monitor.
Mhm.
Like I use, instead of, because I need to know the cursor position
Mhm.
to know which monitor is focused. So I don't use Wayland for that. Instead, I look at the Linux DRM API,
Uh-huh.
and I look where the cursor plane is, like the graphics where it is displayed. and you don't need root access to do that, which is funny. So you can get the cursor position on Wayland without any root access, but the Wayland protocol doesn't give you access to that. So
I had no idea that was a thing. Okay. That seems like a obvious oversight.
yeah, but it doesn't work in all cases. For example, if before some months ago or earlier than that, for example, in KDE, when you enable the VRR, it disabled the hardware cursor plane, so it draw the cursor directly on the monitor instead. So you can guess the position then. So in that case, I had to do another hack where, like, I create the X11 window that's not full screen. In that case, it will, most cases on Wayland compositors, create it on the correct monitor. So I just create it quickly and then get the position of the window to know where the focus monitor is.
Right. Right.
Yes, and then there are also other things I need to do in my application. For example, I need to get the focus window to put the recorded video in a folder with the name of the game, so you can automatically sort the games that you record. And that's not possible, as you know, on Wayland. So I need to use instead X11 to do that, and hopefully the focus window is an X11 window. That works right now because Proton runs as in X11 mode, but if you switch
yeah,
Wayland,
I was gonna say that's a toggle that you can now enable.
Yeah, so that will be a problem in the future. But you can do that on Wayland not if there is a protocol for that, but it's only implemented for VL roots and Hypeland and some others. That's usually the case. And so, and also one thing in my application that I want to do is, like, on Wayland you can display a full screen overlay and like a specific position, things like that, but it doesn't work in GNOME. And the same for my notifications that I have. I custom notifications because one thing about that is with trouble in when you try to record with the desktop portal is when you're recording, it disables notifications usually on some Wayland compositors. So instead, in my own solution, I have my own notifications that always display, and I want them to show at a specific position, but GNOME doesn't want you to make custom notifications, so they don't allow you to put the window wherever you want.
Okay. So you're basically in a position where you have these hacks in places where you can have them, but the experience for a user is going to be different on each of these different compositor bases.
Yeah, so I end up using X11 in all cases because of that, and then that works better. So I'm forced to do that. Yeah, and there's a major issue is even if it could work on Wayland, all of this, I can't still use it because right now when Proton runs in X11 mode, one issue is that if you run a full screen game and then open another window, like an overlay on top of that, it will minimize the game. So
right.
Yeah, so I need to do another hack for that. I need to I can't move the focus to the overlay window. Instead, I have to grab the keyboard. In X11 you can grab the keyboard so other windows don't get focus, and then create an override window so it doesn't get the focus, the windows, but it still has input to the window. So it has like fake focus. Yeah, so and that doesn't work correctly with Wayland because you can't grab the keyboard on Wayland even in X11 mode. So it works if the focus window is an X11 window. So I have to detect if the focus window is an X11 windows on Wayland. And you can't really do that either. So I had to do other hacks for that.
So, okay. If you're on, let's just say KDE, because I'm sure the experience is going to be a mess across everything. If you're on KDE and you're using GPU screen recorder, is the experience going to be on par with the X11, like if you're running on X11, or is there still some stuff where even with all of your hacks, it doesn't work correctly?
For a lot of users, it seems to work as expected on X11 as well.
Okay.
In the same way that you would expect. But some features might not work if you use them. So if you don't use all features, then it will work.
Right, because when I was talking about Phoenix in my video, I mentioned that you were saying that like GPU stream recorder doesn't work properly on Wayland, and I had a bunch of comments, people saying, "No, it works just fine on Wayland. It works perfectly on Wayland."
Right.
So I guess with all your hacks, you have got it to a point where even though it's a mess, like it works well enough for some people.
Yeah, but they haven't seen the bug reports that I get. So
I see.
yeah, like almost all of them are related to Wayland. So
So just for your own sanity is part of the reason why you want to make your own X11 server.
yeah, and there are also other issues like this is an issue on both X11 and Wayland. But when I'm recording the screen, I want to hide the notification that is shown, but it shows up in the recording. But that's really not possible on Wayland and X11 right now if you don't record a specific window instead. So as an alternative, I have so you can show the recording status as a LED notification on your keyboard, like the scroll up LED. And you can change the scroll up LED on Wayland, as far as I know. So instead, I bypass the Wayland compositor and use root access to change the LED on the keyboard. And that has issues as well. So on X11, I could easily change it, but it doesn't work on Wayland, even with X Wayland mode. So,
yeah. So the obvious question that I'm sure you've probably got is, why not build a Wayland compositor that basically just branches off in a direction that has everything you need? So realistically, it wouldn't be Wayland, it would be very custom, but it would have everything you wanted.
Right, because in the Wayland, the user experience is tied to the compositor in practice. Like if you run, if you want to use my compositor, you can't use KDE, the KDE or GNOME or whatever you like to use. So that's the issue.
In the case of Cosmic, you actually can swap out the compositor, like that window management component. Most of the others now you can't though. GNOME you definitely can't. KDE, no, you can't. But Cosmic you can. It's just not documented. I believe Victoria Breckenfield did a talk maybe like a year or so back, demonstrating using Cosmic's like desktop environment with like Sway as the compositor and various other things.
Right. It's not an issue really, and it's not technically an issue, but because of the way Wayland is designed, Wayland compositors don't end up doing that. So
right. And then especially if you're on something like a Sway or a Hyperland, there's no component to swap out there, so that experience just wouldn't be possible with this custom thing you make.
Yeah, right.
So I guess the question then becomes, why build your own thing instead of taking what exists with Xorg and then changing it into what you want?
Right, so I did some work in Xlibre. I wasn't that interested in Xorg server because I think it seemed like they have paused the development on that.
Right.
Yeah, so I did get involved a little bit in Xlibre, but the issue was that they were more focused on refactoring, and that caused also bugs and things like that. So like almost all of my committee in Xlibre was bug fixing. So it seems like it wasn't moving forward to making changes in that.
Mm.
Yeah. So I want to try something new and an experiment, and also because of there's a large issue in the Xorg server, and that's that they handle all of the protocols manually,
Mhm.
like they parse the protocol code manually and things like that. So that's a large issue. So you need to do all of that from scratch to do it properly.
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
So that's why they want to choose. That's one of the first things I did in Phoenix to
Mhm.
parse the protocol automatically.
So Xorg kind of has like a lot of baggage with it, where to really start making a lot of changes to it, you would need to do a lot of additional work to sort of get it in that direction. And there's a lot of code there to sift through to know what is actually wrong.
Yeah, that's correct.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I guess then that sort of takes us into Phoenix itself then. I'm sure it's going to come up at some point, but the first question I do want to ask is why did you decide to go with Zig? Because, you could have gone with C, you could have done Rust like everyone else is doing. Why Zig?
Right. So I actually like C, but I've been invested in SIG for quite a while now, since very early days, and I just wanted to try something new because Phoenix was first also mostly an experiment to do something new, and there are also some features in SIG that would allow me to make it better, like the memory handling part and automatically being more secure, be like array out of bounds index checks. And also it also allows me to do that automatically parsing of the protocol directly in the language at compile time instead of like, for example, in Wayland and X11, you have in X11 you have the XCB proto handling. It parses XML files and generates C code from that in the same way in Wayland. And I didn't want to do that. I wanted to have it directly in the language, just compile it, not without any extra steps. And also that ends up being much simpler. It's like 300 lines of code instead of thousands of lines of code, in X11 and Wayland.
Okay. So, had you tried any like you said you've been involved in Zig for a while now. I assume you have some other, if not important, just random little projects you've made here and there with Zig?
I haven't made very large projects, but I have made some, yeah.
So this wasn't like the first thing you were jumping into with Zig.
Yeah, it's not the first.
Okay. I have spoken to some people where it's like, so I picked up this language and I'm gonna write a kernel. Like, good luck. You're gonna rewrite a lot of the early code, but good luck. I hope it goes well for you.
And also, Sig is not a complicated language, so like even if you've never used it, you can very easily know how to use it if you have used some other languages. So it's not an issue really.
Yeah, I've never actually tried Zig myself. What is the actual like? What is, I guess, the common selling point for it?
I don't know what the common selling points is, but the reason I use it, there are many. But for example, it can directly include C headers. Many modern languages can't do that, and the way it handles errors is very good. It's one of the best languages to do that, in my opinion. And also the way you handle memory, even though it's manual, you have all the nice things like defer, error defer, and things like that. And also the compile time is very nice. Like you don't have another language to do compile time. Instead, it's the same language, it just runs at compile time instead. But yeah, there are many features of it. It's just nice. But the point is that it's not too different from C, and I like C. There's some things I don't like in C, so that it improves on top of that.
What is GPU screen recorder written in?
It's C and C++.
Okay. So that's would you say C is the language you have the most experience in?
No, it's actually C++.
Okay. I guess then why not go C++ with the project?
I don't like C++. Even
Fair enough.
even though I've been using it for 13 years or something, and also use it professionally. I don't like it. I don't think it's a good language. I think that's the case for most C++ developers. They don't use it because they like it, but because the other alternatives are not as great, maybe.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. I know at least one C++ dev that likes it, but I'll make sure to send that that specific section to him to see what he has to say.
The mean back straight.
Yes,
the
that's it.
developer.
Okay, you knew exactly what I was talking about. Look, I don't know if half the time I don't know if he's being serious or if what he's saying is a joke. So look, maybe he actually hates C++, but he certainly seems convinced he likes it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have the language, and I guess where do you even start building an X11 server? Like, what is the first thing you do? At least, what was the first thing that you did? And even maybe before that, like, what was the prep you did to sort of even know where to begin?
Right. So I had some knowledge before of a bit of it about the protocol. I did I only did the basic things like connection and authentication and that. But also when I worked on X11 and I looked at the Xorg code before, I read the protocol and things like that. I saw that. But then I also just looked at for Phoenix. I looked at the X11 protocol documentation. In there, it explains everything. At least for the core protocol, it explains how everything is set up and things like that. And also, I had to compare it to XACE code and Xorg code. But usually, if you look at the X11 protocol, the core protocol, it's pretty easy to see. And also, you can use a program called X11 trace. When you run an X11 program with that, it will print out the protocol messages it sends, so you can see from that you can learn.
Okay, so where did you begin? Like, what was your first goal when you started developing the project?
I didn't have an end goal in mind, but I just wanted to first get it to display graphics on the window to see first if it was even possible to realistically get it to work. I just want to see how complicated it was, but then I saw that it's not really that complicated, and to make it work, it's just implementing the protocols one by one until it works.
Where is it right now? Like, what sort of state is it in?
Yeah, so it can display some basic applications, and also it can display my own application, another application I have, not GPS screen encoder. So it's missing some input handling and some events and stuff like that. But like if I add that, then my own application should just work. So for some applications, they don't really need that much. They just need to display graphics, like using OpenGL. They don't even need all rendering things. And then you just need input, and then they work. So some applications just are simple, but then there are other ones that need to some older rendering stuff and some X11 rendering stuff. And right now I'm trying to get SuperTux to run, and it uses SDL2. So if I get that works, then SDL2 applications will work at least. But yeah, there's quite a bit to implement. But I don't see anything hindering it.
So it's relatively straightforward. Did you expect it to be so straightforward?
I didn't even think about that. I just went in and then tried to get the basic things to display too. That was the step to see if it was simple. And then after that, I saw that it was simple.
At this stage, how long have you been working on the project for?
Right, so I started on when I was on vacation, but in active development is around maybe 2 months.
Okay. When you like, how much has been done in that last 2 months? Was it at the point where it was rendering basic applications before then, or is that a really recent thing?
Right, in the when it got all of this attention, at that point it could only render the GLX Gears demo, if you know what it is. Yeah, and then after that I had support, so I can run my own applications. So like in just a few days, it was able to display a real application.
So obviously being able to display like basic stuff is cool and all, but the point where it would be actually usable is when you can go and display an entire desktop. Let's say like a XFCE, for example. How much would need to be in place to make that possible?
So, for example, yeah, if you want to display XFCE, you need to GTK applications, and you need like the render extensions and things like that. So that's a bit related to what I'm working on now. That's a little bit more work. So if I get, at first I would try to get DVM, for example, to run, because that's what I'm running. Getting DVM to run is not that hard, but if you want to get XFCE, that's a bit harder, because even though if I implement everything, I need to see if everything behaves as expected with a more complicated desktop.
Right.
But it's not that difficult. It's just how much time I have to focus on this.
My understanding with Xorg is over the years, a lot of like subtle changes had been made like from the desktop environments. So I don't know if you're going to run into a point where there's things that exist in Xorg that are technically off spec.
I haven't seen that issue yet, but I have seen, for example, bugs in Xlib because it expects Xorg. Not on a protocol level, but for example, optional data that is supposed to be optional, it expects it to be there, otherwise it crashes.
Right.
Yeah, but in that case, it's not because it expects exactly to Xorg, but it expects data to be there that they hadn't implemented yet at that point. Yeah, so I might need to implement a bit more than just basic things to get to work because of things like that as well.
Now, X11 has been around for a long time. 84, something like that. That sounds about right. Over that time, there's been a lot of things. Would say a lot of things added to X11, and whilst most people nowadays using Xorg in a relatively simple way, relatively standard hardware, my understanding is also a lot of things that are supported by Xorg that nobody is reasonably using now.
Yeah, that's right. So, like for example, in my own application and that I run with Phoenix, it only uses a tiny fraction of the protocol, and that's the case for most applications. So, like if you try to get my games to run, it will be the easiest part because they don't really use a lot of the protocol. They usually just want to get the buffer, and then display it on the screen, and then get the input. So getting games to run will be the first part it will be able to do. And then also, yeah, as you said, there are a lot of things that people don't use. And right now, I'm just implementing extensions of the X11 protocol as I see them.
Right.
So yeah, so the way I'm implementing it is that I don't just start from this first thing and then go down and implement everything. I run real applications and then see what they need, and then implement those things.
So you didn't really have a idea of where to start. You wanted to just base it off of, hey, I can trace what protocols are being used. Let's just follow an application and see exactly what that needs. And then if you don't run into any applications that need something, that can sort of be left somewhere down the line.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, that actually makes sense as a way to sort of guide your direction, because there are a couple of other X11 implementations out there, but the idea of building an X11 server hasn't been that common of a thing. There's X11 no, I don't remember what it's called. There's definitely a few other servers out there, but the point I'm trying to get at there is there's not a ton of other examples of sort of how to approach building an X11 server. You have Xorg, which has tons and tons of stuff in it, but not necessarily everything in that is actually required for, real applications now, or even possibly real applications ever.
Yeah. So I think it's much easier than people think. At least the core part, like for example, the extensions, not everything is properly documented. Like it mentions which things are part of the API, but it doesn't mention like how the messages are supposed to look like. So you have to look at sometimes you have to look at the XACE XML files instead, and maybe sometimes in the Xorg code. But that's one thing my project Phoenix will improve, because it will generate the protocol from the parse structs. So it will always have all of the implementations, all protocols documented. So it will be a little bit easier for others also to get into that.
One thing I'm kind of curious about is how does an X server work? If that makes sense. Like, if I'm trying to run an application, what is the X server actually doing?
Right. So when a client connects to X11, that's the first thing they do. They connect to the X11 server, and then after that, like, they want to display a graphics inside the window usually, and they do that by, like, if for example if they do use OpenGL, the OpenGL creates a buffer. The GPU driver does that, and then it asks the X11 server to import that. So they share the file descriptor to the server, and then it imports that with OpenGL, and then the driver will ask it to display that, and it will display that. So the communication to the X11 server is not just in the application, but also in the driver. So the driver, because on Linux there is no standard way to like share the graphics data with the display server. Instead, there's a Wayland way, and then there's a X11 way. So yeah, it uses a DRE3 extension to do that. And then also you want to do things like when the window is focused, you want to get input then instead of always getting input. And that it does that by sending events to the client when you move the cursor, for example, and press buttons. But that's just that's the basic thing setup you have in applications. There are other things that you can do like around that, but those are the important parts.
Right. Okay. One question I do have to ask about is hardware support. Like, how was it being handled in Xorg? And I guess how do you make sure that hardware is actually going to work with this thing?
Right. So Linux has standard for that drivers use right now, the Linux DRM API. And then you have also the Mesa KVM to create the buffers. And modern hardware supports that, Intel, AMD, and NVIDIA. NVIDIA had issues with that before, because they want to push EGL streams. So that caused some issues in Wayland, as you know. And but modern NVIDIA supports that. But there's also the issue that all the NVIDIA drivers, which are tied to older NVIDIA GPUs as well, because they can't update to newer drivers, so they can't really use that. So that's
How
an
old
issue.
are we talking here?
I don't know exactly what it is, but I think it's the NVIDIA driver version is for 490 or 475. Yeah, it's earlier than 900 series at least, I think.
Latest supported CPU 490 would be last support 900, so like 800 series, something like that.
Yeah, I think that's correct.
So relatively old cards at this point.
Yeah, exactly. There were some Wayland compositors that used EGL stream before, but I believe they all moved onto Mesa GBM. But I want to try to support those old NVIDIA GPUs as well, but I don't know if EGL streams works as expected, since Wayland compositor just moved on. So I assume maybe there were some issues or not. I don't know. So I will have to try that. But yeah, one of the main reasons that I can't support old NVIDIA GPUs is because they're tied to the Xorg server, because they use the direct API that exposed from the Xorg server. It's not part of the X11 protocol, and they are proprietary, the drivers. So yeah. So it just isn't impossible. It's not possible to do that. If I instead, I could support it if I copy the Xorg server code and then did that, but then it would be Xorg server.
Right.
So.
Right, and at what point does it this is a problem that exists with what do you call it? The Red Hat's new NVIDIA driver, Nova. That's it. If you're going to be building a new project, you have to pick a cutoff point for what you're going to support. And it sounds like you have a reasonable point where it gets considerably harder to make that hardware supported. So unless you wanted to start doing, API reverse engineering to make that happen, or just copy the Xorg code, it seems like a logical stopping point to say, okay, we're going to support everything after that, which supports the new modern thing.
Right. So, yeah, I put that limitation not because because I wanted to, but because it would be otherwise impossible to do it.
Right.
Yeah. So on the AMD and Intel side, it works with much older hardware. So at least for that, it's good.
So one of the nice things about things being open source, people can actually go and support things and fix things that they want to. NVIDIA, we love NVIDIA, great company. At least in recent years, they've been sort of coming around to doing things better, but it's NVIDIA, right? Like there's only so much you can do if they were never going to support the hardware properly on Linux anyway.
Yeah.
So, wait, well, I forgot where I was going to go from there. So hardware support's not a concern. I guess we can talk about what are the actual goals of the project? Like, what do you want this to be?
Right. I just want to mention one more thing about hardware support.
Go right ahead.
I will also be open to accepting pull requests to support all the hardware as a back, because in the Phoenix Xorg, it's abstract the implementation, So I have a backend interface, and there you can add more drivers and for input and graphic and stuff like that. So I will support also all the hardware if somebody wants me to, and they provide the code.
Right.
So
okay.
I'm open to more implementations.
Right. So it's not a project. We won't do that. It's I have other things that are more important right now.
Yeah.
No, that
So
makes,
what was
that makes
the
sense.
other question?
I was just saying, what are the goals, the overall goals of the project? Like long term, when things are in a good and useful, functional state, what do you want to actually do?
Right. So I want to. Well, first I want to be able to run it on my own system instead of Xorg server.
Mhm.
That's the main thing. And then after I make it work like an Xorg server, you can display your desktop environment and things like that.
Mhm.
I want to add support for all these nicer things like HDR and the making a bit more secure
Mhm.
or private. Can you say maybe
Mhm.
like having the not being able to listen to all keyboard inputs and having a prompt when you try to record the screen and things like that. So, and those are the easy part actually to do.
Mhm.
So just when I think get everything else in place, then I can add that.
Mhm. Okay, I actually do want to. I do want to go into that because that is one of those things that I think in my video I said that you're sort of taking what has been learnt from the improvements in Wayland, but also learning from. I honestly, in many ways, I would call them failures of solutions. They came up with problems that existed, but the solutions they haven't. They've caused some issues under themselves. Right now, there are issues with unattended screen recording, for example. This is something that NVIDIA brought up in a recent talk. Then we have the issue of global shortcuts, which is a whole big mess with portals, which every desktop implements the front end differently for, and basically no application support because it requires a whole redesign of how they're handling shortcuts, and it's a whole big mess. The only one that I think it actually has it in a good state is KDE. Hyperland, you've got to like modify the config file to implement any shortcuts for an application. And GNOME, they don't even have the front end, I think is what said in that in the blog post. So I guess which one do you want to approach first? We can talk about HDR, or we can talk about the sort of better ways to handle these security problems.
Right. So actually, GNOME has support for that
Oh,
right
it has
now.
it now?
But
Okay.
yeah, but there were some issues when I used it at least.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, there are issues in almost all of them. So
Mhm.
anyway, so yeah, let's talk about the security part.
Okay.
Like for example, global shortcuts. Like one easy thing you can just do is like KDE does. There's an option to allow X11 applications to get input if they press the modified keys. So for example, Control, Shift, and Alt, and things like that. And so that will pretty good prevent keyloggers because they won't get any. For example, if malicious software ran on the computer, it won't get really any important information then. So that's just one easy solution you can have. You can do that in Xorg server as well if you just modify it to do that simple thing. But then I also want to show I want to be able to show a prompt. For example, if an application wants to get global hotkeys, it will show a prompt to the users to accept it. So it just doesn't do that in the background. But also I want to change some other things like I don't think the application will be able to listen to input without like grabbing it. So they can't just listen to it. They have to be like the owner of the keys that they get. Because yeah, for example, like right now in X11 application, it can listen to the input, but then when you try to write in another application, yeah, it will just work, but the keylogger will be there silently. You won't even notice it. But if it had to grab the keys that it wants to listen to, it won't be able to grab all keys. It will only be able to grab the keys specifically that you want to hit input for. And also if you try to click on them, then you will see that it wouldn't write anything to the application that you're writing into.
Mm-hmm. So you want to make it so that, if I'm understanding correctly, that applications will request the keys they want to listen to, but they can't. If they do that, then they can't just take everything. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Because right now in Xorg, you can just write a Python script that says listen to keyboard and then just log everything.
Right. Yeah, and showing the prompt is a nice part of that, but prompts are maybe not always useful because often people just click accept. They don't really
on Windows, you have like admin prompts that appear and people just like, oh, something wants to run, click it. Whatever happens, who cares?
Yeah, so that's one reason, because of Windows, a lot of those prompts show up and they're not really useful information in them. So people always click next. They don't read, and I blame Windows for that. So maybe if it wasn't because of Windows, then maybe people would read it a little bit more. So.
So do you have some ideas on how you would present that, or right now is it just more of a matter of I want to get it in a state where I can do this, and then I'll think about how to properly present it later?
I have thought about that. So one thing is that you have to make the prompt like not every application should be able to handle the prompts. So you need a special way to do that. So one thing I thought about is when you run the Phoenix, you can pass an application, and then it will run the application, and then it will have a secure communication between them. So then, for example, you have a desktop environment, you'll be able to run another application that handles the prompts for that. So every desktop environment will be able to have its own prompt. For example, if you want to display it in a way that fits the desktop environment. Yeah, and that will handle it. So it will be a communication between that application and the Phoenix.
So let's say I'm running I'm a developer of an application that has global shortcuts. With the idea you're suggesting here, would that developer need to do anything on their end, or would the global shortcut solution you have in Phoenix just work regardless of what the individual developer does?
It will just work.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one reason why like the push to Wayland, although some people maybe say it was because of security and things like that, that's really not the reason why people pushed to Wayland. There was like one thing they wanted to do is every frame should be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
That mantra that they have, and it's not really because of security. Because of the security, you can put that on top of the extra server. It's really that hard to do if they really wanted to. But I think there wasn't any interest in the X11, so that's really the reason why, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. What is your thought with everything? Every frame is perfect. Do you want to have some level of that with Phoenix? Like, where do you sort of stand with that?
Right. So I think from user's perspective, I think one reason.
Before we do that, just for anyone who's unaware, what is meant by every frame is perfect? We probably should explain that.
Right. So on Xorg server, you have had the issue where tearing that you have, even though you maybe some solution be to run a compositor, it doesn't always work. For example, if you have multiple monitors in some cases and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so they wanted to fix that in Wayland to have every frame should be perfect, and also it has lower compositor latency compared to X11, at least compared to the normal compositors. And so they wanted to fix that to make it sure that it always looks perfect. Yeah, so if I go back to, you asked if I want to do that in Phoenix, right? Yeah, I think one of the reasons that people voluntarily change to Wayland was because of tearing.
Mhm.
That was one reason. And I want to at least display without any tearing by default.
Mhm.
And actually, one thing in the Xorg server that they have done is to enable tearing by default. They did like 3 years ago, but they never pushed that to a release. So even though they fixed that long ago, no distro has that.
Right. Okay. Because yeah, I know there was like a setting you could change with Xorg that, at least on AMD and Intel GPUs, would disable the tearing. I don't know if it worked with NVIDIA. NVIDIA.
Yeah, it does work with NVIDIA. You need to use NVIDIA settings
Of course you do.
for that.
Right. Okay.
So also one reason that I want to make Phoenix, and I want to move away from having that NVIDIA specific driver for that. So all of the improvements that I do will also be improvements on NVIDIA side. And also there are things like bugs in the NVIDIA X11 code because it's proprietary. You can't fix it. Like it's related to VSync, and to have every frame perfect, you can't really do that on NVIDIA X11 because of there are bugs in the code. So I know that MPV has had issues with that, so they disabled that code for NVIDIA. Anyway, so if I go back to Phoenix, I want to have no tearing by default, and I also want to do it better than what they have with even on Xorg with the tier 3 option.
What is wrong with the tier 3 option?
Well, if I, for example, try to use it with compositor, then it will be double compositing and things like that. That's one issue with it. But I also didn't want to in Phoenix. I won't force it to run. For example, if you try to run a full screen game, then it should be disabled. So that because if you have a full screen game, you don't need the compositor to do anything. You can just run the game. Can instead itself decide if it wants VSync or not, and that will display it. Because the way compositors remove tearing on X11 is that they run the compositor is full screen window that fits all of monitors. And the reason it doesn't have tearing is because it runs in VSync. And so as long as you have a full screen window on X11, by full screen, I mean that it's full screen on all monitors. So if you have multiple monitors, that's really not really full screen mode. But if you have one monitor, that is full screen mode. So in that case, you won't have any tearing if you enable VSync. So in that case, in Phoenix, I would just disable the compositor because the game itself will decide that if the user wants to not have VSync or not.
One of the things I sorry, before we go to that, I guess we sort of diverged off the security stuff a bit ago, but I kind of want to jump back to that because I just remembered something. With the way you're thinking of handling the keyboard input, so you mentioned that applications won't need to go and make any modifications for this. My understanding for how this would, if I understand the idea you're saying here, is basically you hook into the protocol that they would have already been using and then just add a prompt in between it, I guess.
Right, so actually let's go to how Xorg, because Xorg server has tried to fix this issue. They did it 25 years ago.
Okay.
With XACE. And they did that. It was NSA that implemented that.
Oh, yes, I have been told about this. Okay. Okay, yes, go on. Sorry, I'll see if I can find it. Here we go.
So they did that for use with C Linux, because with C Linux you have the you have this, every application has more permissions that you have on top of the usual Unix permissions.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, they have X11 specific permissions for every window. Like they have a nice GUI prompt that shows you can specify permission for every window and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the issue with that is that if an application doesn't have access to something, then it just crashes the application because with Xlib by default it crashes the application when it gets an error.
Mm-hmm.
So unless the application itself decides to disable that. So one thing I wanted to do, and also what Xlib is doing now with X namespace extension that they have, is to instead of giving an error, you just show dummy data instead. So you have like if you try to get access to the root window of the system and try to access keyboard, for example, it will instead get fake data. So it will seem like from its own perspective that it's reading input, but it's not really just have access to the real data.
Mm-hmm.
So when it tries to, so in Phoenix, if the application will try to get global hotkeys, it will get that fake data, and then in the background it maybe show the prompt. Then when you accept that, then it will get directed to the real data.
Right. And this is the same thing you're thinking of doing with screen sharing as well, or screen recording.
Yeah, right.
Right. Okay. So to the application, it thinks it is seeing either the keyboard, it thinks it's seeing a window it's trying to capture, but it's not. It's something that sort of pretends to be that. It's not the actual thing until the user confirms they want to share it, and then the information is passed through.
Right. So by default, it will like in like a keylogger by default, instead of getting access to input when everything is focused, it will only get input when its own window is focused until it accepted that prompt. Then it gets access to everything.
One of the things you mentioned in the README for Phoenix is improvements for modern technology. And one of the things in here is proper support for multiple monitors. I think a lot of people don't realize how, I guess, in many ways, how much of a hack the implementation of multi-monitor support is and how many problems that actually causes.
Yeah, so in the Xorg server, it has a frame buffer that expands all of the monitors, and it displays that it tries to display that at the same time. So it can cause some issues if you have multiple monitors with different refresh rate. But yeah, there are also some. It's also the main issue really with that is the way it handles compositors, because the compositor extends to all the monitors, and when it has to sync, it has to choose to which monitor it should be synced to. So I believe by default, the way it works in AMD and NVIDIA is that it looks at the center of the window to see which monitor should be synced to. But actually in the X11 protocol, you can decide to which monitor a window should be synced to. Just that compositors don't use that.
Right.
So actually somebody could make an X11 compositor that works properly with multiple monitors, but nobody has really done that. So one thing I want to do in Phoenix is to make that work automatically, even if you have the compositor that expands to all the monitors. So, because I want existing compositor to work as well, just not the one that I will make.
The things like PyCom and anything else people might want to be using.
Yeah.
I guess you're not really, obviously you're trying to just get like basic applications started, but how would you even approach the problem of HDR? And I guess why, maybe this is a harder one to answer, why Xorg sort of never managed to do that?
Right, so there was a proposal by NVIDIA quite long ago to add support for HDR in X11, but it didn't really go any further from that. So you could really look at that and to see how this is done. But there's one issue in the X11 protocol is that in the core protocol, you could have support for HDR for 10-bit mode, but then the Windows won't have really alpha support, for example, and it will be limited to 10-bit support. So you can't have 12-bit or higher as well. So, and also that causes some issues. For example, if you try to run, you can run X07 in 10-bit mode right now, but if you try to do that, some application won't display properly, for example, and also Steam, for example, it will just crash. So one thing I believe I will need to do is instead of making it like part of the core protocol, I will make it instead an extension that you have the application itself will have to use directly instead of automatically getting HDR. It will have to opt into that. So yeah, that will be the way to prevent it from applications to not behave as expected. And then on top of that, to make it work, like to make HDR work, it will be the same as in Wayland compositors, basically, because that's the same.
But this is something that you're probably not gonna touch on for quite a while.
Yeah, right. And also, maybe there won't be any X11 application that uses this protocol that I'm doing. And to be honest, I don't really need to make a new protocol because X11 it has properties that you can set on Windows, and you can set any property on any window. So you can use that to, for example, set this HDR metadata. Then the compositor would read that. In this case, Phoenix would also read that. So I don't really need to make a new protocol extension for that in X11. But maybe there won't be any new application that would use that. But so one thing I want to do is support Wayland applications as well. So like even if you ran, even if you try to run a game and it uses the HDR protocol in Wayland, it should work in Phoenix as well. That's one thing I want to support. But yeah, HDR and all of that, that's something I will support much later.
Yeah, for anyone who doesn't know, there are projects, as you mentioned in the thing, like 12 to 11 to run Wayland applications on an X11 server. So you'd want this to be something like that's just a part of Phoenix. So it basically to the user would be as transparent as running a regular X11 application.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, I've used 11 to 12 to 11 before, and there was some bugs in them, so I fixed them. So I have some knowledge of the code and fixes like that. So if I wanted to, I could just fork 12 to 11 and use that. I'll have to look into which solution I would use.
Right, because even though this does exist, this is something that like Xlibra is going to have to sort of come to terms with eventually. Even though a project like this does exist, it's not going to suddenly change the shift or change the direction that Linux is moving. Most of the major environments are moving towards Wayland. So a lot of new applications are going to, over time, be Wayland-only applications, or if they're not Wayland-only, a lot of developers are going to focus on that side, and maybe the X11 version is just an inferior version of it at some point.
Yeah, and also in Phoenix, the goal is not really to make everybody use it. I'm primarily making it for myself and people that also want to use X11. Yeah, because there are just some applications that won't really ever work properly in Wayland. So for those people, they can use it as an alternative. And also, as I said, like Wayland applications should be able to run. So in that case, you won't be missing out on anything.
Yeah, I think having something like having an alternative exist is really cool. Like Xorg is going to continue doing the Xorg thing because Wayland's part of that project as well, but I don't see Xorg proper ever actually sort of getting massive development again. So having this sort of new approach where you're not tied to what existed with Xorg before and trying to fix problems that exist with it, like, honestly, I just think it's cool. I do just think this project is cool.
Yes, also, yeah, so one reason is I try to avoid even part of that core protocol. I won't implement them. So I've thought about that. Like, since I don't implement part of the core protocol, it can't really be called an X11 server. So maybe I will call it something else. Maybe I will make its own protocol and just call it a subset of X11.
I think, look, at the end of the day, to the user, as long as they can run the things they want to run, and that's going to be a long time down. Actually, how long do you think? Sorry, I keep jumping around a lot. I do this sometimes. How long do you expect it to take to get to a point where you could go and daily drive it? Obviously, you're going to have problems to deal with for a long time, but you personally, for the stuff that you use.
So let's see. Like, if I focused on it 100%, it will only take a few months to do that. So it won't be that long time. And also, like, all of this attention to Phoenix, it got to some attention from companies. So there's one company that you also know that I won't mention now because I don't know if it's supposed to be private information.
Fair enough.
But there's one company that wants me to make a display server for them. It's an open source company as well. So, like, I could use Phoenix for that, and then I will be paid to work on Phoenix. Then it will have proper support quickly, and also HDR, because HDR is something they want. So it's not really decided yet if it will be Phoenix or something else, because they don't really need they don't need most features like X11 and Wayland, stuff like that. They just need very simple display server. So yeah, I will see how I should do that with that. But if I use Phoenix for that, then it will be very quickly work with a proper real environment.
That's cool. That actually is really cool.
Yeah, so if I get a job, they also want me to move to USA and stuff like that. So that's good.
Is that something you're interested in doing?
Yeah. I mean,
sorry, I thought we DC'd for a moment. We good?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you cut out for a moment. So I guess if somebody wanted to, like, help out with the project, what would you suggest that they do? Would it be just to find an application and see what protocols it uses and just go from there, or do you have another idea?
Right. So right now, I don't accept contributions.
Okay.
Because I want to make it. There are some things I need to set up it, like some basic things that are missing that I want to set up first, and then I will mainly code that I will accept first, because it won't be that useful to test application, because I know that the application won't run. So there will be a lot of application that won't run. So, but I've already got a pull request, even though I closed it. So, but yeah, it was bad. But I think I'll get at least. I'll try to focus on getting DVM to run after I get applications run, and hopefully that should be not that long to do. So after I get that, then maybe people could try and run application and see which ones are working or not.
So with Xorg kind of being the X11 server that people think of, one of the things you did bring up in the post was a lot of issues with Xorg get treated as X11 issues. And I've done this myself. I was under the assumption that things like HDR were an unsolvable problem with Xorg. Things like proper support variable refresh rate, fixing global shortcuts, things like that. I guess how I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but like, how do you try to navigate these sort of problems where people seem to have this misunderstanding of what X11's limitations actually are?
Right, so that's actually one reason I want to make Phoenix, because although I was working on it, but then I see that people seem to misunderstand what X11 is. Because they say, why would you want to do that when it has these issues? But it doesn't have those issues, because it just people think that because the only X11 server that they use is Xorg, and Xorg has those issues, so they assume that must be how it is in the protocol.
Mhm.
Like, there are even some Wayland compositors developers that think that is the case.
Mhm.
But when you clearly read the protocol, there aren't really that many issues. It doesn't define how things should really work, because right in the case of X11, it's not even made just for Linux. It's also made for Windows and everything. Like, all of that can work because everything is abstract how it works.
Mhm.
So you can run the X11 server like right now on Windows and Mac as well. And so the issues with having the what people have is not in the X11 protocol.
Mhm.
And that Phoenix will be one proof of that is not nation in X11.
That sort of leads me into another thing I wanted to ask. Why do you think there was this push towards Wayland? Obviously, we talked about like the frame perfect stuff before, but a push towards Wayland instead of building a new X11 server that addressed the problems people had with Xorg.
I think one reason is it's not fun to work on old technology. Like, if you're not paid to work on something, you don't work on something that is old.
Mhm.
That's usually the case. People want to work on something that is like new and exciting.
Yeah, look at the web development space.
Yeah, but then I also think there is obviously there's some. I think the Red Hat is what is more interested in Wayland than the X11, and also the developers here. So everything is moving because of that reason. But yeah, I think the main reason is because X11 looks like old and ugly.
Mhm.
Like, I know that the protocol is not perfect. There are some issues with it, but you can make it better. Just that it doesn't look that interesting. Like, if it doesn't look new and shiny.
Mhm. On that note, you said there are problems with X11 protocols. Like, what problems actually? Like, what are actual real problems with X11?
Right. So, there are many, but it's not really. One example is that it's not the problem. Is like you have a lot of old things that in protocol that you don't need in the new. Really need. Like, you have font stuff that clients instead handle now, like with free type and stuff like that. So, like, I try to make it easier in the Phoenix by not implementing them, because applications don't really use them anymore. But then there are some issues in the way the protocol is designed. It's not designed like consistently, and for example, they didn't think about the size of things. Like, some protocol messages might be long, very long, and the protocol is not handled designed that, so they put extension on top of that to be able to handle that.
Right.
But in my case, I will be able to not deal with that. I don't have to deal with that, because the reason they added that was because they had the rendering functions in the core protocol, like render a lot of rectangles, stuff like that. And since I won't support that, I won't really need to support that part of the extension as well. So yes, I think people should have long ago make an X11 server that is just a subset of the protocol. Then you wouldn't have to focus on the issues with it.
When you talk about things that nobody uses anymore, my favorite example that I love bringing up is the X11 print server.
Yeah, even Xorg server removed that in 2008 or something.
Yeah, obviously. For anyone who doesn't know, it was it's exactly what it sounds like. You could output your X11 server to non-display devices like a printer or a fax machine.
Yeah, so a lot of things in the back then, they didn't have a standard way to communicate between processes. So they tried to put those in the X11 protocol instead. So there are other things as well that do that, like the session handling stuff and things like that. That's not part of the, if I remember correctly, it's not part of the protocol, but it still uses the protocol. You still use X11 codes to do that. Because they want to communicate between different applications.
So, I guess what have we not talked about? I actually don't know. We're just talking about problems with X11. I did have somewhere I wanted to go from here, and now I've lost it once again. Actually, I guess whilst I'm waiting for that to come back to me, what are you currently working on with Phoenix?
Yeah, so right now I'm trying to get super tax to run, and so I'm implementing parts of that. Right now I have to. Well, this is a bit maybe hard to understand, but I'm trying to render the render extension of X11 because it uses that. But I want to have to implement all of it and just implement all the things that it uses, that STL2 uses. Yeah, and once I get that to run, I believe pretty much all STL2 applications will run. And also one thing that I haven't said before is even if Phoenix doesn't turn into that you run there directly on your computer, you'll be able to run it as a window inside X11. So you'll be able to it will work like GameStop basically.
Right.
Yeah, so in one way that's useful, and also you'll be able to develop X11 application like compositors and window mentions, things like that. Because there is a similar application in the Xorg server code. It's called XNest, if I remember correctly. And you can run nested compositor, Xorg server inside the Xorg server. But it doesn't have, for example, hardware acceleration. So maybe you can't test compositor and things like that.
So, when it comes to X11 and Wayland, what do you see as the problem with the Wayland approach, with sort of how we've gotten into the state we're in? And obviously things have come around, things are in a good, it's in a state where things are usable now, but it's taken quite a while to get here. And there's still a lot of oversights that we're still trying to be ironed out.
Right, so the main issue with Wayland isn't really technical. It's, as I've written on my own website, is that it's the difference in philosophy between X11 and Wayland. Because on Wayland, they want to make application specifically designed for their Wayland compositor. And they want to make, they design the protocol to fit that. Instead of making simple constructs that you have for applications to use that you use for a wide range of things, instead design this is how applications should use it exactly, and for nothing else. And also because of that issue, that they want the protocol to fit exactly how it worked in their Wayland compositor. It caused some friction between the different Wayland compositors. That's why they have a lot of discussion, and every time they want to implement something new, that they want to change it how their compositor works instead. But on the X11 side, they don't do that. They instead say that we'll design it, and then desktop environments can use it. But like, I understand why Wayland went that way, because of the freedom in application in X11, it could cause some issues with how application behaved, and also like I said before, like I mentioned, GPU screen recorder. When you open the overlay, then it can make the window minimized that is behind it on X11,
Right.
like the game when it's running full screen mode. So, and also there are some issues like when you change workspace and then go back to the other workspace, that the game doesn't have input, or it's like it's tries like to get really small and things like that. So I understand why Wayland decided the Wayland compositor should decide how Windows behave, not the Windows themselves. But there are some applications like GPU screen recording where it has to decide how it should display. It has to override the behavior of the Wayland compositor to work properly. Like in the case of a GPU screen recorder, it has to be an overlay, because it's not that useful if you have to like Alt tab and then open the window, then do things. You want to do that directly in the game.
Right, one of the protocols that's been going on for a while, it's still going on, is like the whole Wayland positioning protocol, the window positioning protocol, where most of the discussion isn't about sort of the technical concerns of how this would be implemented. A lot of it is whether or not this should be a thing that can be done. It's something that exists on everything else, but for some reason there's this discussion of, do we even want this?
Yeah, so that's one issue. That is actually there's a protocol to do that, like not exact positions, but you can have relative to a screen edge, except the window. But that's not part of the Wayland protocol. It's part of the VL Roots extension to that. And VL Roots and KDE implements that, but not GNOME. So the issue really is in GNOME. They don't want to allow applications to do things like that. And there is a lot of cases in the like Wayland compositor where some things works on basically all other Wayland compositors, but not GNOME. And then people might tell me, just ignore GNOME, but like half of all Linux users use GNOME, so I can't really do that.
Yeah, that's like I can tell people easily, like, just don't use it. If you don't like the direction things are going, just don't use that environment. But if you're trying to develop something that people want to use, right, like, people are still using it. So you kind of have to, if you want to be able to have that, like, access to that section of users, you kind of have to just deal with the fact that you are sort of limited by what one environment decides it wants to do.
Right. And this is also an issue because when we're moving, like, we want some Windows users to switch to Linux, they want to be able to use their applications, but some of those applications can't be ported to Linux, especially now with Wayland, because this if you ported Windows applications to Linux, you could run them with X11 without any issues, because it allows all the things. But some things of those things are not possible with Wayland, so it will make that part harder as well.
So, what would, if you were the benevolent dictator of Wayland, what would you change with the, I guess, protocol development strategy?
I would change the philosophy of it, but that's the issue that I don't think any of the Wayland compositor developers are interested in that. Maybe Hyperland is, because they usually implement everything, basically. But yeah, I would change the philosophy that instead that applications should have more power to do things, and instead of designing things specifically how the Wayland compositor work, they should be more generalized, so it works for more things. Then there are also the issue like with screen recording, for example, it's way too complicated. And one reason for that is because they want to make it work with Flatpaks, and also because both Flatpak and Pipewire, the Red Hat projects. So I think there was maybe a little bit conflict of interest there when they did that. So like in the desktop protocol, the Pipewire is hard coded there, so you have to support Pipewire to make screen recording work on Linux if you use the desktop portal. So like right now, I believe they're trying to make just a Wayland compositor. I mean Wayland protocol where it will be able to record the screen without Pipewire, and that will make it much simpler. Then you can skip thousands of lines of code. But I'm not sure if all Wayland compositors will implement that. So you won't be able to use it even if they add it. Because why would you use that?
I believe that protocol came from the WL root side, if I believe.
Yeah, and I believe also Cosmic has implemented it, if I remember correctly. But yeah, why would you use that if you can use the desktop portal instead and support all Wayland compositors? So maybe it won't even really be that useful. So that's also an issue that we have on Wayland.
Yeah, Wayland is it's in this weird state where whilst you have wide adoption of a lot of protocols, because there is this one entity that decides it wants to be very choosy about what it's going to implement, you kind of create this how would you say it? Like I guess fracturing, I guess, is a good way to put it.
Yeah, so there is a lot of duplicated work if you really look at Wayland in the Wayland compositors. Maybe if they would have designed a compositor that is more extensible, that you can make your own desktop environment on top of that, then it wouldn't have been an issue. But I think a lot of work has been wasted. Like maybe some people think it's complicated for me to make an X11 server, but I don't really think it's more complicated than making a Wayland compositor if you try to make it work for a lot of applications.
There have been sort of early discussions that got shot down relatively quickly about building effectively the Wayland Xorg server, where it's a basic compositor that everyone builds off of, and a lot of the arguments basically boil down to this is too complicated. It would create a lot of complexity with environments wanting to add things into it, but at least you are early on in the project, so maybe something's going to change. At least from your perspective, doing this, building something akin to an Xorg, even though you are doing it with X11 again, isn't an impossible endeavor.
Yeah. Yeah, so as I said before, it's not really that more complicated than making a Wayland compositor, in my opinion at least. And part of that is that I'm not implementing the whole protocol. Yeah.
Let's see, we covered that. Actually, yeah, one thing that maybe some people might not be sure about is you say you're going to support multiple displays, but not multiple X11 screens. And this is one of these weird X11 terms that I feel like some people probably are not aware of.
Right, so it's a bit confusing on X11 because you have screens, but they are not monitors. Like they were monitors in the past when you ran Cinerama, for example, because you had you have one screen for every monitor.
Mhm.
But there was an issue with that. Like you can move one window to another monitor with that.
Mhm.
But now in X11 we have a render, the extension for that, and that's the only thing I'm going to implement. So, and also that's what desktop environment and things like that use already now, and window manager and things like that. So they will work, and nothing will really break, and yeah, things will work as people expect. And I will be able to remove a large part of that. And I actually believe in the X12 proposal, if you have seen that.
Yes, I have. X12
Yeah.
proposal. Let's see if we can find it. What was it called? An X12 Linux. Oh. Here we go. Wait, I made a video on this like 5 years ago. Do I have a link to it in my description? Yes, I do. Okay, thank you, me from the past. Okay, we found it.
I believe in that one, it mentions that they want to support only one screen, but then also make it work with the X11 protocol. And that's basically what I'm doing as well. So I was taking a bit of inspiration from that as well.
So, obviously, you couldn't call it an X12, but you are like, it is kind.
Yeah.
I've seen some people kind of saying that this is the X12 that people wanted.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that, because in X12 they want to support all of the things in all the protocol as well, and mine will only be a subset that applications really use. It won't be X12 even. Yeah, you wouldn't be able to call it that.
X11.5.
Yeah, so I thought about like a name if I were to make a new protocol. Like there's X server, there is also Y server, so maybe I call it Z server, and that will fit SIG.
Right, for anyone who wasn't, what if I remember? Isn't X called X because it was a port of W from the Y operating system? That sounds right. It sounds stupid, right? I'm pretty sure that's how the history goes. It was like
I don't remember
it was in.
earliest.
I don't remember the letters, but it was something like that. It was like inspired by that. They wanted to make a graphical server for like general Unix. Again, I did a video on this like 5 years ago, so I could probably go back and reference my old video. I don't fully remember now.
Yeah, there's a lot of history. I don't remember all the details, but yeah.
So, I guess what was I gonna say? God damn it, this is happening a lot today. Jesus Christ, I keep forgetting what I'm gonna say. I only took like 3 weeks off doing podcasting, and I'm already an absolute mess. Yup. Yup. God damn it.
But yeah, I could mention like one of the issues I had in another application that I worked on is I wanted to embed a window inside another window. I do that with the video player that I have. And you can't really do that in Wayland. Like instead, they want you to make your own compositor just for your own application. So you have to write your entire Wayland compositor just to embed it inside the window. And I think that's a bad part, because actually, if you have application separated in different its own processes, they're isolated from each other, and you can set the sandboxing. You can do Linux sandboxing to make it more secure. So that's one security feature that Wayland developers they don't want. So I thought that was a bit weird, because there is also, like in the digital audio workstations, there is the standard plugin interface that works that is cross-platform, and one of them is to embed a window inside the digital audio workstation, and that doesn't work on Wayland. And like there is a very good reason to work with that way, because like if the application itself uses one version of Qt, but the plugin is another version of Qt, then they won't work together.
Right.
So you have to have a separate applications that you embed inside each other.
I remember the thing I was gonna ask. Maybe it's kind of hard to answer now because the project is still fairly early. But how much of X11 do you expect to not really need? How much do you expect can just be left in Xorg to not be dealt with by you?
Right. So I won't really need any of the core protocol rendering stuff. Just some basic things like opening a font. Like for example, in X11, you have the cursor is actually the default cursor. Things like that. They are fonts actually. But I won't really need to real fonts to display graphics and things like that. So I will maybe need half of the core protocol actually only. And then some extensions I don't need those either. So yeah, it's a relatively small part that I really need. Like I could implement those things, but I don't think I will really need them.
So you at least right now, right? You might like run into things that need more than you actually expected.
Yeah, exactly. But sometimes also there might be some application that uses something, but they might not do everything a single thing with it, because like there are some parts of the protocol that are pretty complicated, like the keyboard stuff, the keyboard extension XKB, and I won't really need to implement all of that. Like if I want to do that, it will be pretty complicated. But there is like a library called XACE common that also Wayland compositors and things like that uses, and I will use that and implement the things that can do, at least to start with. So you can use different keyboard layouts and also languages and things like that. But I won't implement all of those things, at least not to start with.
So how far back do you want to make sure is actually being supported?
Do you mean in the
like in terms of applications people wanted to run?
Right. So basically, every application that doesn't use the core protocol for rendering, so it will support GTK2 application at least, and from there, and so it'll be like almost 15 to 20 years of applications will work. Yeah, so it won't really be an issue for like almost nobody will have issues. Maybe you try to run so like CD, like the old desktop environments.
CDE,
like
yeah,
really
yeah.
old. Yeah, the common desktop environment. I believe that's the name for it.
Yes, yes. They've actually had a new release not that long ago. Yeah, 42 days ago they had a new release. Somebody's still working on that thing.
Yes, so I think it is Xmotive for the applications, things like that. So I don't think that will work, but maybe I could support it later on, like if I have time. Like nothing in the description that I made for Phoenix is set in stone. So if I have time, I would implement more things as well.
Right, right. And again, once you said that you'd be willing to accept drivers, so I assume that if people wanted to, make CDE work and you hadn't actually done so yet, that would be something you'd be open to as well.
Yes. So in the description, I just set realistic goals for the project. And also I want to say that when I wrote that and all those things, I didn't announce the project yet to anybody, but somebody else decided to take that and put it on Hacker News. So because I was going to wait before like Phoenix could first run real application stuff like that, and then announce
Right,
it.
so people have like a better first impression of it.
Yeah, exactly, and also because I wanted to show that it like those things I mentioned before, like people the issues with the X11 that people think are part of the X11 protocol.
Mhm,
I
mhm.
wanted to be able to show that directly that there are not issues with the X11 protocol, and then have proof of that as well, not just writing.
Right, because right now it's just you kind of saying, "Hey, I can do this," but you don't actually have the proof of it yet.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess what was it like, kind of just putting this project out there and then it just getting a bunch of attention? Because obviously this isn't the first project you've had that's had a bunch of attention. A lot of people know about GPU Screen Recorder, but I assume that when people found out about that one, it was already in a pretty good state.
Yeah, so in the case of GPS Screen Recorder, it didn't actually get any attention for years.
Mhm.
And the application was already working, but then I decided to post about it. So I was the one to announce it to the wider public.
I see.
Yeah, so in the case of Phoenix, it was announced before it was ready. So I didn't know why people would be so interested in it, because it was too early to announce. Like, there are a lot of projects on the internet that do interesting things, but they're early and they're not really worth talking about yet. So I didn't know why they would post about that yet.
I think people are just kind of there's a group of people that are just very excited about X11 because there is such a push to Wayland that anything that seems to show an interest in keeping X11 around into the future just it's just going to be interesting to some people.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's hopium.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, as much as I'm happy on Wayland at this stage, even with all of the problems that do exist, my workflow is good. I understand that there are people that have certain things where Wayland is just never going to, at least in the direction it's going, never going to handle everything they want. I think people, especially with the fact that like the only other project realistically that was keeping things going on the Linux side was Ex Libre, and as you said, it's basically just a lot of refactors, a lot of bug fixes. There's not been a ton of sort of major development work to it in like taking it in a new direction. So seeing something where it actually is a different approach, but keeping that X11 spirit there, that X11 support there. I don't know. I think it's just something where it shows that there is still some interest in X11.
Yeah, so there are many people that can use Wayland without any issue, so they
Hmm.
won't really have any reason to use Phoenix. But I believe one of the, if not the main reason people use Wayland is because of the tearing issues that they have. So when they can see that it is fixed, maybe they will be interested in trying Phoenix as well.
No, I'll definitely be keeping an eye on the project. I'm very curious to see. I'm very curious to see how much of what you said can be done can actually be done. Maybe all of it. Maybe you actually get all of it done and Phoenix ends up being great, but again, we don't have an example of it being of that actually happening. So I will be keeping a close eye on it to see sort of where it ends up going. And my suggestion to you, and maybe you've already thought about this, when you do get it into a state where you consider it to actually be good, I would do like another sort of soft relaunch, just so people kind of know that it's now in a good state.
Right. And also one other issue that people have is multi-monitoring support with. But that's one issue that, like, even if I implemented that and wanted to demo that it works, it's like, how do you do that? You could record application, but you want to be able to see that it works. So they will have to try it themselves to really see that it works with multiple monitors that expect. So that will be interesting.
Yeah, that's a kind of hard one to demo, but I don't know. If it's in a state where it can actually be used by people, that sort of makes that easy enough, I guess. There's not really any if you provide a way for people to run it and people know that it works, then you've kind of done your part there.
Yeah. And also, like, one reason I use SIG is because it's really easy to build application with it. Like, I will try to remove as many dependencies as I can, and so you can just run SIG build and try it out. So that's also be one reason. It will make it easy for people to try and also develop it. So.
So, I guess, how long do you expect it to get to a point where it would be worth people trying it? Because right now it's probably very, very limited. Would it be once you've at least got a Super Tux cart working, just so there's something that's sort of easily testable there? Or like, when would you want people to actually try it out?
Right, so I believe most people will want to be able to run a whole desktop environment inside it. So I don't know if they're interested in trying it before that, but maybe some people are, and especially developers. And so when I get SuperTux running, then it will be more interesting to try.
Yeah. Okay. I think we've pretty much covered everything that I wanted to talk about. Is there anything else that you feel like we probably should touch on?
No. It will be interesting to see how it works with the job that I talked about. If I were to use Phoenix and build with Phoenix and that, then it will be very quickly to get it to work in a work sync that people could use. So I will see how that goes.
Yeah, I wish you the best of luck with that. If that doesn't happen, however long the project ends up taking, I hope this isn't a project that you work on for a couple of months and then it ends up being abandoned. I do hope this is a thing you stick with long term and bring it into like a good usable state, but I understand that other things would possibly get in the way.
Yeah, and also I don't want people to just sit and expect it to like come out anytime, like, because I said right now I work on it when I have free time, and also work on other projects like GPU screening for and fixing bugs in that. So, and also I might not work on it every day, so people should just wait until it comes out and then try it. Like, don't expect too much, actually.
I guess that is kind of the problem with people knowing about it a little bit too early now. Now it's like, oh, people are kind of expecting it. People are sort of, hey, when is it going to be ready? How far is it away? All this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I was super happy about it. But I guess since they got me this job, that I should be happy about it because of that. So
Yeah. Well, hopefully, as I said, hopefully that goes well. And yeah. So if people want to, I guess, if you want to get involved in GPU Screen Recorder, because that one is the one that is all open that people can get involved in right now, where can they go to for that?
so they go on my website, GPU Screen, and there they can find GPU Screen Recorder. But if they just want to install the application, they can do that on FlatHub. But yeah, I don't use like websites like GitHub and GitLab and stuff like that. So you can just contribute directly. I accept patches by email instead, like the Linux kernel does. So yeah, so I guess it's the development is similar to that.
I guess that does filter out a lot of people who may not be very serious about sort of helping out.
Yeah, that's like it's almost a feature that I don't get dumb bug reports and things like that. Is instead people that are more serious about that than yeah.
Yeah. So Phoenix is in the same location, but right now, as you said earlier, you are not currently accepting pull requests.
Yeah, that's correct. And also, yeah, I can't say the name of the website since it's not pronounceable, so but you can put it in this description if you want.
Yeah, I will do that. Yeah. I guess with you working on it casually, when would you hope to get it to a point where you'd be willing to accept pull requests from other people?
Yeah, so right now, there's one part that I need to do alone first because it would be a little bit mess of people if multiple people worked on that.
Mhm.
But after I'm done with that, then people could make pull requests. So if I work actively on that, then maybe 1 or 2 weeks,
Mhm.
then I will be able to open pull requests.
Okay. Well, as I said a couple of times already, I hope the project goes well. I wish you the best of luck. And yeah, hopefully it gets to a good state eventually, and I'll definitely be there when it does. I'll definitely be checking it out and seeing sort of what can actually be done with this.
Yes. Yeah. Also, one thing I didn't mention is that
Yes.
right now I'm focused on AMD and Intel.
Mhm.
So
Understandable.
I don't think Phoenix right now even runs on NVIDIA. Just when you run it nested on X11, it expects a different. It works a little bit different because it's running with the proprietary NVIDIA
Mhm, mhm.
driver on X11. So yeah, at first I will only focus on AMD and Intel, so
Mhm.
people know that.
Okay, that makes sense. Anything else you wanted to mention? There's probably going to be something you think of as soon as we stop recording.
Yeah. Yeah. Right now there are not. I think I've said everything. Like there are some small things, but they're not that important. So
Mhm. No other links you want to direct people to?
uh, no, just my website if they're interested in looking at that. So yeah, that's it.
Okay. It was a pleasure talking. This was, even though it was a bit disconnected and rambly with with whatever I was doing this time, hopefully people got some value out of it. I guess I'll do my outro and then we will sign off.
Yeah, it's actually been 2 hours. I didn't expect that.
Mhm.
So it's a long time. Yeah, but thanks.
Yeah. No, thank you for coming and doing this. Okay, so my main channel is Brody Robertson. I do Linux videos there 6-ish days a week. Sometimes I stream as well. Check that out and see what's going on. There'll probably be another video about Phoenix, I don't know, eventually. When it gets to a good state. I've got the gaming channel, Brody on Games. Right now I'm playing through DMC Devil May Cry for some reason. And I don't know, Silksong. That's the other one I'm playing right now. Also, if you're watching the video version of this, you can find the audio version on basically every podcast platform. That is Tech Over Tea, and the video is on YouTube, Tech Over Tea. I'll give you the final word. How do you want to sign us off?
I don't have anything to say really, but
No one ever
yeah,
does.
thanks for having me. Thanks for having me on.
Absolute pleasure.
Yeah, bye.